An e-commerce brand that did 6 figures in its first year, and then 3 years later I shut it all down. But here's everything that I learned and also the biggest mistakes that I made, so that if you have an e-commerce brand, you're not going to repeat my mistakes. First mistake that we made had to do with when we were creating our brand identity and understanding who our target demographic was and creating those ideal customer avatars. We failed to understand that the target demographic that we were kind of catering to and our target audience, they didn't have money because they were young Gen Z people. I think that catering to Gen Z as a target demographic is really tricky because they're young, like they're not making that much money for the most part. I have a friend who started a different e-commerce brand in the beauty space, and her e-commerce brand specifically targets women over the age of 50, and that demographic has a lot of money to spend on her products. I think the issue that we were finding with my e-commerce brand is that the target demographic that we were catering to, they loved our products, they were obsessed with it, but the problem is that they just didn't have money because they were still in school, didn't have a lot of free cash, so we're living paycheck to paycheck. The second mistake that we made was having too much of a niche. Oh, you definitely do not want to have a product that caters to everyone, because if you cater to everyone, you cater to no one. We had this assortment of products that were very polarizing. The problem is that the use cases were so specific, and what ended up happening is that they only ended up being popular among influencers and not really the layperson. And if you know anything about beauty influencers, they don't like buying things, they like being gifted things. So it was a big problem that we were running into, where a lot of influencers loved our products, loved talking about our products, but they only wanted to be gifted them. They didn't want to buy them. And then in turn, a lot of consumers, they looked at the products and they were like, okay, well, this looks really good. Like, I love the way it looks, but I just don't think it's practical for my day-to-day. It's only applicable in a very costume makeup kind of way. Third mistake that we made had everything to do with scaling. Now, scaling is really tricky as an e-commerce brand because obviously you don't want to outsource too quickly, but when you reach a certain critical mass, you need to outsource. I think our problem is that the landscape of e-commerce changed so dramatically in 2020 to 2021 and onward. And so the problem is that we were having this really wild success in the early years of our brand. Then the landscape changed, the beauty industry changed, and the problem is that we just couldn't stay competitive. We didn't have the energy and the resources to put into it. And so we scaled out of fulfillment center, we hired interns, we had all the infrastructure in place. Our sales weren't enough to support that. And though we shut down the brand 3 years after we started it, I don't really view it as a failure because I learned so many things that are so applicable to all the businesses that I have now. Would I do e-commerce again? Maybe. Would I do beauty makeup e-commerce again? Definitely not.